Good afternoon, everyone. We are the Group 2 and we are going to tackle about curriculum vitae and memorandum. Please listen carefully for at the end of the report, we will give prizes to those who can answer our questions. Before we start, let me ask you a question first. Aside from the 7-part format of the types of business letters previously introduced to you, have you also encountered other types of business letters with a different format? Could you name one of them or two maybe? Thank you for your answer. In the previous lesson, we have learned about the different kinds of business letters in the business world. These letters have different purposes and functions, but with only one goal. The subject matter is clearly understood by the reader or recipient. We also have seen examples of the different types of business letters, specifically those that follow the 7 basic part format.
Good afternoon, ma'am. Good afternoon, classmates. This afternoon, our group, which is Group 2, our task is to tackle about other types of business letters with different formats of curriculum vitae and memorandum.
Good afternoon, everyone. This afternoon, I'm going to tackle about curriculum vitae, or in the British accent, curriculum vitae in American accent. So to make it easier, we use the abbreviation, which is SAVI. So what is SAVI? SAVI is a brief account of a person's education, qualifications, and previous experience, typically sent with a job application, or a short written description of your education, qualifications, previous jobs, and sometimes also your personal interest, which is sent to an employer when you are trying to get a job. So SAVI, in a Latin word, course of life, or your academic life story. So what is the importance of SAVI? So a SAVI is a short document that gives you a chance to show a prospective employer the best of what you've got. It sells your skills, experience, and shows them you're the right person for the job. Making a good impression is important in today's competitive job market. So in your CV, you have to highlight your academic achievements and credentials. It is also a complete background of your educational career. So when it comes to formatting, your CV, you need to be meticulous, means showing great attention to detail or showing extreme care and concern for details. You have to look at where all your quotations and punctuations are and be consistent with that. So, what is the difference between a resume and a CV? So, a resume is a one-page summary of your work experience and background relevant to the job you're applying to. So, resume, on the other hand, is much shorter and should be concise and present the information in clear and indirect way. While CV is a longer academic diary that includes all your experience, certificates, and publications. So CV is usually longer than a resume because it includes all the information. For job seekers, creating a resume is one of the most important steps in the search process. Why? Because resume is much shorter summary of your background, especially to those who were undergrad or early career. They use resume. But um, savvy is a really specific, very extensive, means wide or large from the word extent. So less extensive listing of all your achievements. Who usually use the savvy? So the graduates, postdoctoral positions, teaching education, research positions in post-secondary institutions, and law. A savvy and resume, both they are essential tools for advancing your career. One outlines your academic achievements, while the other is geared more toward your skills and job compatibility. So CV is not only for applying a job, but it also applies for grants, scholarships, or positions related to the field of education. A survey helps you organize and present your coursework in a clear and in a professional way.
Now we will tackle about what your CV should include. First is your personal data. The only required information is your name, address, phone number, and email address. Now this personal data or personal information is what makes you an identified person. Second is your career objectives. An objective tells potential employers the sort of work you are hoping to do. Now, when writing your career objectives, you must think carefully what your goals or objectives is because employers usually or tend to seek for candidates that are driven enough to understand what they want. Then your summary of skills or professional expertise. A concise statement highlighting your strongest skills and areas of professional expertise can be an advantage to you, especially if you have a mixed experiences in your career history. Then, next would be your education. One rule of thumb is that unless you are more than 5 years out of school, your education section should precede your experience section. Now, when providing your education, it is not necessary to include your GPA or grade point average unless asked by your employer or your potential employer. Then, the next, your work experience. Include an organization where you work as a kagatrabaho, the job title on sa imong trabaho, the dates you were employed, kano sa ka na-employ, and a summary of your work experiences and achievements. When writing your work experiences, you must consider writing it in a well-written manner, for this contains necessary qualifications for the job you are applying to. Then, next is your publications. List those publications that relate directly to your career goals. Now, when listing your publications, it should be relevant to your career goals. Employers that are interested in your publications are those teaching hospitals, research organization, consulting, and international organization. Then next is your computer skills. It is advisable to provide information about your computer skills. If you are literate in computers, then it is an advantage for you since technology now is very rampant. Next is languages. If you are fluent in several languages, list the languages you speak and think carefully about your level of proficiency. Now, why is it important that we must think carefully about our level of proficiency in a specific language? Because when you are being interviewed, you may be asked to demonstrate the languages you spoke, and if you overrate yourself, then it can cause conflict to your job application. Then next is your interest. So you have to include your interests, hobbies, or travels. And if you have the same interest with your interviewer, then it may spark a conversation that can be an advantage to your job applications and can be a factor or an aspect in the decision making of your interview. Then lastly, references. You can write references available upon request if you have space. Employers will ask directly for references to prepare a list with names, titles, addresses, and telephone or fax numbers. This is an example of a CV. So first, you have to put your name, your address, and your contact number. Then you have to provide a 2x2 picture on the right side of the bond paper. The next is your career objectives. For example, to obtain a position as a manager where I can contribute my experiences, knowledge, and skills for the improvement of myself and the company. As I said before, it is very important to be specific on what your goals or objectives is when applying for that specific company. So next is your personal information. This includes your age, date of birth, your gender, civil status, citizenship, and your height and weight. The next is your educational background. So when writing your educational background, the most recent education you have taken should be listed first, then followed by the previous one. So you have their graduate school, tertiary education, secondary education, and your elementary education. Now you also have to provide the date when you started and when you ended. The next is your special skills. For example, copy editing skills, knowledgeable in applying computer skills like in coding, doing Microsoft Word or Excel, or running specific tools. So as I said before, having the ability or capability of using computers is an advantage to you because modern businesses rely on computerized technology to efficiently complete vast amount of tasks. So using technologies will allow you to be more productive and easily complete given tasks. Next is your work experiences. So same with your educational background, the most recent one should be listed first. So when providing your work experiences, put there the position, what position you have, where it was, and when it started and when it ended. Now, in this example, his experiences, he became a guest English instructor, a secondary English teacher, and a copy editor. Now, this is an example of a mixed experiences since a guest English instructor and a secondary English teacher is not of the same field with a copy editor. Now, this work experiences is an advantage to an individual or to a job seeker for they have different kinds of experiences in different fields. Now, next is your seminars or trainings attended. So, write the title of the seminar, where it was held, and when it was conducted. The next is your recognitions. So, when writing your recognitions, you have to put what recognitions you have achieved and when you have received that specific recognition. So, for example, speaker or trainer for seminar or workshop, writing accomplishment report for the barangay secretaries on February 24, 2020. Now, next is your character references. So, when writing your character references, put the people or the individuals that can speak the attitude you have or the personal qualities and abilities you have in the workplace. So you have to put the name, the position, where they work, and their contact number.
So, hello everyone. I am Crystal C. Ramirez and I am assigned in this topic. So, now let's start discussing about CV writing tips. First is we need to ensure that it is easy to read. Design your CV so that the information is clearly presented. We need to create our CV in such a way that the information is easily accessible so that recruiters will see immediately that you have the right skills, experience, and motivation for the job. Next is we need to keep it short. We need to uh, limit our CV to 1 page if you have little or no experience, or 2 pages if you have between 7 and 10 years of relevant experience. You may be blabbering if you go on much longer, but if you go on any shorter, you may not have supplied the right information or enough information. So the third one is to always personalize your CV for the job and the organization you are applying for. Tailoring it for each position, make sure it reacts directly to the job description and exhibits a thorough understanding of the firm. The fourth one is to use keywords. Many recruiters look for certain capabilities and qualities on CVs using keywords. Make a list of keywords that can help your CV show up in search results, then figure out how to include them into your resume, talents, and personal statements, for example. The fifth one is to send your CV in a PDF form. Sending it in a PDF format at all times helps it to be professional and keeps the design intact. Number 6 is don't be negative. Don't criticize your previous and current employers and bring up any unpleasant points in your career. Your CV should project a favorable image of yourself. The seventh tip is to use action verbs. Bullet points are the most efficient way to describe your prior responsibilities. Make use of action verbs, say initiated or developed instead of I did or I was. The eighth tip is to provide evidence. Include instances of your accomplishments, such as changes you've made at work or challenges you've addressed, to demonstrate that you are a strong candidate. You can also upload credentials to demonstrate what abilities you've learned. So, the ninth tip is to triple check for spelling, grammar, and formatting mistakes. If you want to exhibit your professionalism and attention to detail, your CV must be excellent. Check for errors in spelling, grammar, and formatting 3 times. You should also have it checked by or someone you may know to avoid errors in spelling, grammar, or layout. A single mistake might result in your CV being rejected immediately. So the last tip is to check country specific CV requirements. Check the criteria for each country CV. For example, in certain nations, including an image of oneself is encouraged, whereas in others, it is prohibited. So that is the end of our discussion about CV writing tips. Now we are going to move on to the next topic. Thank you for listening.
Good day, everyone. Our topic is memorandum. The topic memorandum is divided into three topics. Topic 1 is definition and purpose of memorandum will be reported by Ms. Hugo Roslin. Topic 2, what your memorandum should include and will be reported by Ms. Sandra May Lastimoso. And last, memorandum writing tips will be reported by Miss Umaging Twinkle. Thank you for listening. Good day, everyone. I am Roslyn Mayagmayugo, and my task is to define memorandum and what's the purpose of memorandum. I hope everyone's attention as we start our discussion. So, the definition of memorandum is a memorandum is a written message that is typically used in a professional setting, commonly known as memo. These messages are typically brief and easily understood. By following this format, a memo offers an organization the chance to communicate important information efficiently in order to make dynamic and impactful changes. So, I know everyone here is already nakadungog na mo og word nga memorandum, right? This means that ang memorandum is not that dili siya pwede nga kuan ka ng magdaghan pa jud kay kang words gamiton. Ang memorandum dapat as we said as said in this slide, it tells that it is brief and easily understood. So that means dapat makasabot dayon ang mubasa sa imuhang ganahan ipakita. Then also memorandum, it meaning niya is reminder. So nagpa siya tawag ani nagpahibalo siya. It is normally used for communicating policies, procedures, or related official business within an organization. That's the definition of memorandum. Now now we are done with the definition of memorandum. Now let's start with the purpose of memorandum. A memorandum's purpose is often to inform but it occasionally includes an element of persuasion or a call to action. Another purpose of memorandum is one effective way to address informal, unofficial speculation is to spell out clearly for all employees what is going on with a particular issue. Third, they may also include statements that align business and employee interest and underscore common ground and benefit. Kaning kaning purpose nga akong gibasa is one of the purpose of memorandum ranisia dili jud ni siya nga maura jud ni purpose of memorandum, one of the purpose of memorandum na akong gibasa. So this it states here that memorandum is to often inform. Yes, like giba ni anak ko nga memorandum is a reminder. So ang memorandum kay nagbibigay ng paalala, like that. And it may also include statements that align business and employee interest. So I think that's it, and I hope you gain knowledge from my task. And now let's start listening from the next reporter.
So after the definition and the purpose of memorandum, let's now tackle about what your memorandum should include. So basically, a memorandum consists of 4 parts: the heading, the opening, the body, and the closing. So let's now first tackle about the heading. The heading identifies for whom the memo has been written, who is sending it, the date, and the subject. The subject lines serve as the memo's title. So let's now first talk about date. Provide the complete and accurate date, and don't forget to include the year. So list the date in which the memo is distributed. So for example, September 17, 2020. So as you can see, we have the month, the day, and the year. So let's now move on to 2. Provide the names and titles of everyone who will receive your memo. List the recipients of the memo. If there are several recipients, it's acceptable to use group name. So for example, all employees. So let's now proceed to from. Provide your complete name and title. You should write the name and the designation of the sender or who is sending it. So for example, Mary Margaret, CEO. So we have the name Mary Margaret and her position, CEO. Let's now move on to subject. Provide a brief yet specific description of what the memo is about. So in short, the subject is the topic or the title of your memo. So for example, facilities update. So your memo is all about facilities update. Remember that all heading labels should be in all caps followed by a colon. So now let's proceed to the second part of memorandum, which is the opening. States purpose of memo, gives the fact. The opening part, it serves as your introduction, or in this part, you will explain the purpose or why are you writing this memo. So now let's proceed to the third part of the memorandum, which is the body. Body of the memo contains the message of the memo. It describes, explains, and discusses the central idea of the memo and includes all the details that supports the sender's ideas. So, you remember, you stated your purpose in the opening area. Now in the body, you will discuss how will you address the problem or the question, and don't forget to include all the details that supports your idea. So, this is also the part where you make your recommendations, acknowledge other recommendations, and describes future problems that might occur. So let's now move on to the fourth part of a memorandum, which is the closing. Make a courteous closing statement. do not use sincerely or another letter-like endings. So in the closing, it should be a positive statement. So once you have given your readers all the information relevant to the subject of your memo, use a courteous closing statement that describe the action you want them to take and point out how this will benefit everyone. So there are also optional parts of a memo. First, reference, for example, response to other memos, notices, reports, and other documents. So next is attachment. So provide all information or additional details, for example, list, diagrams, spectrographs, tables, and other source of data. Next is distribution list or CC, person who might be receiving copies of memo. So CC is someone in addition to the person addressed. So we have here an example of memorandum. So date August 26, 2002. All employees from Alice Marie Genova PIO. Subject facilities update. So as you can see, all heading labels are all in caps followed by a colon. We have here the opening. I am writing to inform you that over the next few months, our lounge and locker rooms will be under renovations. So she stated her purpose why she is writing this memo. So next, for our body, as our company continues to grow, we feel that there is a need to provide more space for additional lockers and dining tables. We are very thankful to our utility teams for their hard work and for making this happen. If you have concern regarding to this matter, you can view the complete details on our Slack group chat. In the meantime, we apologize for the inconvenience. So we have here the body. So in this part, she discussed how the problem will be addressed. So next is for the closing. The renovations will start next week, August 28 to October 2. You can bring your bags and personal belongings with you during the said dates. Thank you. So that is her closing statement. So as you can see, she didn't use sincerely yours or another letter like ending for other letters. So we have here also another example of memorandum. To GTS sales staff from Karen Morey, CC, Mr. John Sakazaki. So aside from the GTS sales staff, Mr. John Sakazaki will also receive a copy of the memo. So date April 18, 2008. Subject customers presentation. So the opening is the GSKL marketing presentation you prepared last week to showcase our new product line was exceptional. And for the body, your enthusiasm, sales strategy, and product knowledge were impressive and certainly sealed the deal with Mr. Lockhart. And for the closing part, thank you for your outstanding work and dedication. Bonus check will be distributed next week. My sincere congratulations to all of you. Remember this, that a memorandum does not contain the same part as the letters contains. It does not contain a signature block. The basic sender-receiver information is found in the heading part. So that's all, and thank you, and I hope you learn a lot.
Here are the tips in writing a memorandum. First, your memos should be succinct, formal, clear, interesting, and easy to read. You need to express it clearly so that the readers can understand your memo properly. Next, it should be logically organized, accurate, well-researched, and informative. Organize the memo into paragraphs with the important information first. You may use double spacing between paragraphs and do not intend paragraphs. If needed, you may include the bulleted point sections in the main message. Next is avoid using technical jargon and abbreviations that the recipient may not understand. It is because to avoid complications and so that the reader will not be having a hard time in understanding your memo. Next, highlight important points, reduce unnecessary wordiness with headings, subheadings, bullet points, and numbered lists. The purpose of highlighting is to draw attention to important information in a text. Effective highlighting is effective because it first asks the reader to pick out the important parts and then gives an effective way to review that information later. Next is check for correct grammar, spelling, and punctuation. It is very important to review your memo so that if there will be a wrong grammar, spelling, or punctuation, you can change it immediately. Next is avoid the use of slang, colloquialisms, and contractions because contractions lessen the impact of your words and may lead to your ideas not being taken seriously. Lastly, use action verbs and an active voice to convey your confidence. In most cases, using active voice will result in shorter, sharper sentences that are easier for the reader to follow. This makes your writing clearer and aids the reader in visualizing what's happening, especially when you use vivid action verbs.
I'll smile, I know what it takes to fool this town. I'll do it till the sun goes down and all through the night time.